Hey, Zach.
Hey, Alex.
And welcome, everyone, to the Pokemon Power Podcast. Hey, Zach, we are coming back from a break.
One of these days I'm going to record something and it's going to be good. I was thinking about it the last week and I was like, I got to record something. So we stopped singing it every week.
I say that before every time we do this podcast. I say, one of these days I'm going to record something and it's going to be good.
Perfect.
I have to do, it's been a while. We barely made it through our introductory jingle. And now I'm going to do the like and subscribe jingle. Like them, subscribe them, and follow them. Leave a review where you don't yell. Pokemon Power Podcast.
Another thing I need to record and fix. So just one more thing.
I do wrong. When are you going to edit me out of the show entirely?
It's just in the coming weeks.
Work in progress. You know, I'm going to see the person. Well, I guess this is a thing to update for next week. Whatever. This show is just me and you chatting about Pokemon. Yeah. Thank you for joining us for season 2 of this show. This is the first episode of season 2, I guess. And it's a show where we rank and review Pokemon and put them on a big power ranking. But I would like to tell the listeners at home, I don't feel well. And I think I may have COVID. Nice. I'm going to find out tomorrow. And I will update everyone on the podcast next week.
Prayers.
And we can find out, you just progressively watch me get worse or, listen
live
to my
on
voice.
The air.
Yeah.
Live stream
I'll eat something and tell you about how I can't taste it. This is depressing.
Can you not taste things yet? Can you not taste things yet?
I taste everything still, which makes me think I don't have it. I'm hopeful that I don't. Say your prayers, listener.
Thank you.
All right.
I don't have COVID. That's the next part of it is that.
When was the last time you were tested, Zach?
It's probably 3 weeks ago now.
You probably got COVID.
I mean, we did travel to Oklahoma.
Why are we talking about this when the capital was over?
Let's not bring that up. Let's bring up fun things. Let's bring up fun things, not,
Whatever, we spent the first 2 minutes of this talking about how I might have COVID.
Yeah, that's fine. Personal stuff, like if you personally went to the Capitol, then definitely we'd be talking about that. But I don't want to talk about those people.
You didn't see me with my big moose costume that
I thought you were standing right next to Alex Jones, cheering the people saying, please don't break in. I heard someone quote that said, if Alex Jones is the voice of reason yelling to not do something, it means that you've really lost it.
I believe it was Charles Manson who has talked about how crazy Scientology is, which for me is just like that. For me is like, if Charles Manson's like, this seems a little too wild for me. Zach, it's time for our icebreaker for the week. This is a show about Pokemon. Yeah. And with that in mind, we are recording this late. We were hoping to get this out by the 11th. I think we're going to put this out the following Monday. Who knows? Maybe this will be up tomorrow. I don't know. We'll discuss it after we record because we didn't discuss it beforehand. No. But what we're going to do is, as of today, as of this morning, Pokemon released a new trailer for their new upcoming Pokemon game, New Pokemon Snap, with a release date of April 30th in the US. And Zach and I are going to play this real quick, and we're going to kind of talk about what we like and what we don't like, all that good stuff, just classic YouTube stuff. And if you're listening to this, don't worry, we're not going to be silent. We're going to talk over this, so you'll hear the discussion. And if you're listening and want to play along, we're going to click play right. Oh, now. Here we go. And Zach, have you seen this, by the way? I sent this to you.
Oh, no, I didn't watch it. I saw that you sent it to me, and I didn't watch it. I didn't want to, ruin the suspense of it. I wanted to be experienced. So, I mean,
Zach's live reactions.
There's a lot of stuff. Oh, camera. So the child is surprised that what looked like to be some sort of technology thing, it's a camera. I mean, it's very high tech, what we're looking at here.
Okay, so I just want to generally say this looks way sharper than Pokemon Sword and Shield.
And by sharper, you mean like the graphics of it, or just that it looks cooler?
This is a much better looking game than Pokemon Sword and Shield, just based off the very little that we're seeing here. Look at this. So this is the big jungle environment we're seeing right now. And this, I mean, it's still, I mean, it's not going to sit next to, Last of Us 2 or anything. Yeah. But it does look very nice. I think that as far as Pokemon environments go, this looks good.
Yeah, there's definitely looks like a lot of stuff going on. Not in this scene. It's just a weird empty desert with a bunch of little blobs walking around.
Blobs? By blobs, you mean Pokemon?
Yeah, I mean, they're blob Pokemon. But yeah, I mean, you're taking pictures of a lot of stuff.
Hippowdon, which just a hippo.
There we go. Oh, there's something happening though. Fireflies? I don't know. You're floating around in this little chair still. Oh man, here we go. Some giant Pokemon with a flower face. Very
Okay,
good.
so
we're looking
Zach,
at all the pictures. Capture your favorite moment. I love it. How much is it? $25?
No, this is a full price $60 game, Zach.
All right. That's a little concerning to me from what happened, because here's the deal. They came out with that game 20 years ago. You know?
Yeah.
And it was great when it came out, especially because, you know, there was nothing. There was never anything like this. You're taking pictures in a game. And I imagine it probably cost the full price of a video game back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't know. It was a different time back then, man. I just think if this is all we've got here, we're just taking some pictures.
Was it really that different? We still had a president that was impeached then.
Wow. I mean, really think about full circle. So they have to keep it the same. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
They have to keep it exactly
the same.
We
now have a president who's been impeached twice. So this is going to be double the game that the first one was.
Yeah. So I think I'm just either it's got to be so much stuff going on. It's got to be so giant. Whereas it looks like in this picture, we've got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, 5, 6 different environments that they kind of show.
Sure, that they're showing. I will say, hopefully they're keeping some things secret. I don't like when you see like the final environment of a game in a trailer. I think that's it leaves very little to be excited for. Yeah. I do like how many different, I know you're not as familiar with the later generations. So a lot of these Pokemon look very foreign to you, but they do have a good spread across the different generations. It's not like,
is that a Pokemon we're looking at right now? Those two things are
everything
those Pokemon?
you're seeing is Pokemon.
Those
yes.
are just regular birds.
Moving.
Those were just regular birds.
No,
that was just a toucan. So here's what's getting me interested. This
He's
right
from
here,
Sun and Moon.
This guy, I mean,
that's
he's
a Chandler.
Okay. Well, I know that's a deer. I got it. That's fine.
Deerling.
But it looks like there's going to be pretty, like a lot of depth to the environment, because it's got here, it looks like there's a forest. You've got some fog. So if there's like time-based stuff, I think that could be interesting.
Yeah, because it does look like we see the same desert at day and nighttime. So I mean, if we're seeing this in both, you're able to go there at different times of day. I mean, you can reuse those environments in interesting ways. Maybe you go there in the morning and you see a Pidgey, and if you go in the evening, you say a Pidgeot. You start to see different Pokemon depending on when you go. I think that would be cool.
And I think that if you had like a lot of, rewards is all games are, right? And so if we're talking about, like that's what, like, it's giving you the hit of serotonin, whatever it is, that it's like, oh, I got to get like the next reward. I could see it being really worth it if it's like you've got sunrises, sunsets, the different times that you want to try to catch exact certain things happening. So you're like kind of going through environments a lot, like sitting around. I could see it taking up a lot of time, like, kind of like where you're doing a lot of nothing in what's the nothing game? Not Harvest Moon. What is it that I just played like 100 hours doing nothing? No. It, almost one game of the year. You love it. You paid it 700 hours.
Oh, Animal Crossing.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of nothing that you can do in Animal Crossing just by like, all right, I got to come back and play at night. Got to come back in the morning. Got to come back because it's snowing. Got to catch a snowflake.
I do think there is a big this is good podcasting, right? Mm-hmm. Stumbling over what I'm trying to say. I think there's a lot of opportunities for events and things like that where people would come back and say, oh, it's October. I want to get the fall stuff going on in Pokemon Snap, see these environments in their fall settings. I think that would be true. You'd see that. Hopefully they give us a lot of reasons to come back. But yeah, I think a lot of cool stuff in there. Still a lot to see, especially for a full price game. But Nintendo, do your little direct thing, before we hit that. But Zach, we're not a Pokemon Snap podcast. We're a Pokemon ranking podcast. And we're going to talk about
season 2, babe. We're just Pokemon Snap.
And one change we're making to season 2 is we are changing up Gotta Elucidate Them All. Zach, we are telling you what the Pokemon is ahead of time. You personally, Zach, if you haven't listened to any episodes before, we're about to do a segment called Gotta Elucidate Them All. In this segment, what used to happen is Zach would see a picture of the Pokemon that we were talking about for this week, and he would see it for the first time live on the podcast. And we realized that we were handicapping Zach. Zach would then have no idea what we were going to discuss. And then the conversation from there would be me saying, isn't that interesting, Zach? And Zach would say, I guess, for the remaining 20 minutes of the episode.
Sounds cool.
So we changed it up. Zach does know which Pokemon we're going to talk about. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to give ourselves 30 seconds to describe this Pokemon. And Zach and I are going to basically kind of take turns on it. What I'm going to do is live right now, I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to search flip a coin. And then I'm going to click the flip button. And Zach, we're going to have a coin side for the season. Do you want heads or tails?
Heads.
And let's say it lands on heads. Does that mean you get to elucidate it, or does that mean Okay,
whoever
perfect.
gets it gets to. It's a privilege.
So if it's tails, I elucidate. If it's heads, you elucidate. Do you trust me enough that I don't have to bring this up on the stream?
Absolutely not. You need to share it. Jeez. I mean, I think you need to share it because we're testing this out to see if this is going to be the next way the next presidential election is going to be decided. Is just the Google
coin flip?
Google flip a coin. That's the new thing. All right, that's what tails looks like.
No one. What's the people Dominion would hack the
hack the coin flip. Here's the thing. It says about on the screen here. If you Google flip a coin, it goes, this is what flipping a coin is about. Coin flipping, coin tossing. This is insane. This is what someone would look up. All right. Anyway, let's flip it. Let's go for it.
I just really want to really quickly. I asked a friend of mine, I was like, do you have any feedback on my show? And he's like, yeah, man, every episode, for some reason, you always get very political. So I just want to say, Jeff, I'm sorry. I have gotten very political several times in the first 11 minutes.
Yeah.
So you said tails is me, heads is you. I'm going to click flip right now. What do we got? That's heads. Zach,
bingo.
You get to the
bingo.
You're keeping.
Can
your
we choose
going.
Different coins though? Because I didn't like that coin, but just for next time.
We'll see. We'll double check on that.
Fine.
Very important. Thank you for bringing that up now.
Listen, I mean, I can already hear the viewers and listeners going, I hated the sound of that coin.
Was there a sound? I don't think so. All right. Well, I'm going to bring this Pokemon up on the screen. It is your turn this week, Zach. Are you ready?
I'm ready to go.
You see this week's Pokemon and describe it. Perfect. I'm going to bring this up on the screen in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Starting it up. I'm ready to go. What I'm looking at is a giant clam, and I'm not going to use the name of the Pokemon because that would be illegal. I'm looking at, it's got a black hole for a face and a big old giant tongue hanging out of that face. 2 eyes that look dead to the world, like zombie eyes staring out into nothing. Oh, it's also purple. That's key here. And you got some spikes coming out of it, real angry like.
Okay, perfect. Ended with 2 seconds left. Well, Zach, I must ask, who's that Pokemon?
We're looking at Shellder today, Alex. That's our Pokemon of the day.
Now, Zach.
Yeah.
Since you knew ahead of time that this was Shellder that we were going to talk about, I'm sure you have a lot of pre-loaded opinions and comments. I'm sure you did your hard research. What do you think about Shellder?
I did. At first glance, looks like a doofus. At second glance, he's got some real stuff going on.
Okay. Hit me with what you think the real stuff is, because I think I have a hot take on this one.
Everything about him is kind of whatever. He's like a shell. That's all he is. He's a shell that's kind of poisonous and has barbs on him.
He has little spikes on its upper right, upper left.
Is the descriptions of his relationship with a slowpoke. I think that's where it gets us some interesting, some pretty crazy stuff, how he lives his life as a parasite.
So I agree. I think that is very bizarre, but we're going to get to that in just a minute, because I want to talk about how I think Shellder is defined by his wasted potential.
Okay.
And here's what I'm going to say. I think the more that you look at Shellder, the more you think, wow, Shellder should be top tier.
Yeah. But he's got a shell the strength of maybe diamonds.
Which, if you read the Pokédex description, it says it is encased in a shell that is harder than a diamond. Inside, however, it is surprisingly tender. So the purple outside.
That's such a funny.
Surprisingly tender. I know.
That's a guy who ate one of them. That's what he's saying. Super crazy. That's surprisingly tender when you cook up that little shell.
That would be like, you're in high school and you're afraid of your girlfriend's dad. That would be how she would describe him. She'd be like, oh no, he's surprisingly tender. You'd go over, he'd like be militaristic. Yeah. His eyebrows always furrowed.
Surprisingly tender.
But I think it's true in Shelder's case because the more they describe him, the more they say his outside hard as can be. His inside, he's just you breathe hard on him and he falls over and dies.
It's worthless.
But here's the main issue. If you have a hard shell and a surprisingly tender inside,
I mean,
you should keep your shell shut, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No way. Shellder leaves himself open all the time.
Yep. Floating around with those big old dumb eyes, that big tongue hanging out like there's a crazy person.
Yes. Yellow, the Pokedex in yellow reiterates this exactly. It says the shell can withstand any attack. Rayquaza could be banging on the outside of that shell doing nothing.
Yep.
However, when it is open, the tender body is exposed. Obviously.
Yeah.
Now here's the problem. Zach, have you ever seen a Shellder closed?
No, never in my life.
Me neither. And I told you it was Shellder ahead of time. You did your research.
I did.
And you didn't see any closed Shelders. No. I haven't either. And I'm a Poke expert, as we've said on this show before.
You are.
But even beyond that, this is how Diamond and Pearl describes how Shellder moves around. It's a shell, it's a clam, so it's in the water. It says it swims backwards by opening and closing its two shells. Its large tongue is always kept hanging out. So not only, in order for it to move anywhere, it has to open its shell. It also can't see where it's going.
Yeah.
It's doing, if you can't understand it, it's like doing the Pac-Man, except in the opposite direction. It's waka-walking in reverse.
Yeah.
And I just think like this thing is always open. And it is ruining its ability to be a fighter Pokemon, a battle boy, as we like to call them.
A battle boy.
And Ultra Moon is kind of the clincher for me that Shellder is wasted potential.
Yeah.
Ultra Moon says sometimes it is closed. It says even when its shell is closed, its tongue still hangs out.
Yeah.
If you give its tongue a good yank, the shock will cause Shellder to open its shell.
Yeah.
So even when it's closed, it has this very obvious
pull this string and I will open up.
It's the boss battle. It's like the first boss battle in like a Zelda game where the guy's like, you can't beat me. Yeah. And then it has like a really obvious weak spot, like a big eye for you to just like, well, you have this eye that's humongous. I'm just going to punch that. My eye. Like
exactly.
Shellder is that. Like
it's literally the every boss in Mario, pretty much. Mario 3D Marios, where it's just like run around me really fast. Please don't catch my tail or the leg or whatever it is. Don't catch that because you'll destroy me.
I just played Link's Awakening for the like fourth time in my life, and the second boss in that game is a GD, and the GD's like, you can't hurt me well as long as I'm in my lamp. And then when he hides in his lamp, he's like, you can't hurt my lamp with your sword. I bet the wall is stronger than your sword. He's like, all right, well, I'll toss you into the wall. Shelder's that. He's like, hey, my shell's closed. You can't get me. It's like you just see the tongue like flapping around. You're like, I think I just pulled this tongue. Yeah. So here's the thing. Now, there's still the question of, maybe we're just not seeing Shellder in battle. Maybe he is a tactician. When he gets in battle, he has his tongue up, but he's avoiding these enemies. He somehow has some vision to see outside of his shell. I'm going to argue no, because of what you mentioned earlier, Zach, about his parasitic relationship with Slowpoke. Do you want to describe that for the listener, for those who are unaware?
So if you've ever seen the picture of it's not actually a Slowpoke though. It's the next
turns into Slowbro and Slowking.
Yeah. So Slowbro is the first one, and Alex pulls it up here. You see what looks nothing like what you originally saw.
Somehow this is still a Shellder.
It's still Shellder. It's not changed at all. It's just still Shellder, which is what I had to double take on. I'm like, this got to be a different evolution. But no, because this guy, I mean, look at him. He's got angry eye. He's got spiky teeth holding onto there. Dumb old Slowpoke standing there with the dumbest face on still, not even noticing that this guy is just eating his tail. And so it's not only that it says that this they get like the taste. They love the taste of the slowpoke tail, which is creepy enough, but it's that they love it so much that they'll attach onto it and eat it and then like slowly drain the life of this slow bro. That's just, they exist to then slowly drain the life. And that's just what they do. And I'm guessing to the end of that slowpoke's life that is now slow bro or slow king. I mean, it's like just, it's sitting there draining the life. And then Slow King is even scarier because that thing goes right onto his brain. It's up on top of him.
Slow King, yes.
It's Slow King, and it's still Slow King's face, like a little dummy. And you can't see in that one, but sometimes I feel like the pictures of that other realm one or whatever.
The Galarian one.
Yeah.
Galarian one looks evil.
Look at that. The Slowpoke is there smiling like a dingus. He can't even see anymore. And you've got the evil. So that's where I'm saying there's something going on in that shell that once it gets the taste of this Slowpoke, it turns into this crazy, just this crazy thing.
So I will say in the Galar Pokédex, or I guess in the Pokédex describing the Galarian Slow King, it talks about how when the Shellder bites the head of the slow poke, it starts to put a venom into its brain, which in that one, I believe, makes the slow poke smarter.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing that's crazy to me, because here's basically my thesis. I think both Slowpoke and Shellder are two of the dumbest Pokemon in Pokemon. As you can see with Shellder, unable to protect its one weak spot. And as we described with Slowpoke, it is known as the dopey Pokemon. Yeah. Generally just very dumb. But I think, you mentioned that Shellder is a parasite on the Slowpoke. I think it's more like the movie Parasite, where we question who's the real parasite.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is I think that Slowpoke, which is now Slowbro or Slow King, is getting a lot out of this relationship. When it's a regular Slowbro, it's protecting its much wanted tail. Yeah. And now if you want to get that tail, you got to get through something harder than Diamond. You're not getting that tail. No. When it is a Galarian Slowbro, he has it on his arm, kind of like when you see a football player with their arm in a cast. They got the hammer and with their cast, and they're just whacking people with it on the football field. Yeah. And that guy comes out, he's all bloody and bruised, and he's like, "I can't go in, coach." And coach is like, "You gotta go in. We got no more defensive linemen. They all got COVID. We gotta win the Stanley Cup." Yeah. And they're like, "That's not the right cup for this game. That's in hockey." Yeah. And he's like, "Then the Heisman." He's like, "This is professional." And he's like, "I don't know. How do I know this and you don't? I have a concussion." That's what happens in football.
Yeah.
And that's what this Slowbro is doing
every day.
And even when it goes into its mega evolved form, whole body protected by this thing, Slowpoke understands how to use Shellder's ability of protection better than Shellder does.
True.
You see it across the Slow Kings as well. He wears on regular Slow King, he wears it like a hat protecting the top of his head. And in the Galarian version, he's wearing it like a full-on helmet.
Yeah. As
I said before, these Slow Bros and Slow Kings, they're football players. He's got that helmet on, and his coach is like, "You go out there and get a high score." And he's like, "That's video games."
Get a high score. All right. I think I see what you're saying here, and I would agree. I think without each other, both of them are nothing, which is an interesting way to, I think, give value to both of the worthless Pokemon that are Slowpoke and Shellder.
It'll be interesting when we get to Slowbro and Slow King to see how we rank them. If you're unfamiliar with the ranking, Slowpoke right now is 20 of 20. He's at the absolute bottom with our favorite Snorlax at the very top.
Yep. Forever.
Rest in power, Snorlax.
Will he ever be moved? I don't know. It's definitely not going to be this week.
Maybe it's somewhere. We'll see. I don't know. But the one other thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you
here's
have
something
anything
before we jump onto that, because it's what we say. The only way that it would be twisted, which it's not, because I looked again, because I'm not an expert, but I read, is that would make me think that there was something more going on with Shellder, but it was only this relationship with Slowpoke, is if Shellder could use that in other ways, right? If there's like other Pokemon that he attaches to anything and he's like making that like how his like powers or whatever.
Sure.
But the only other cool thing is sometimes people, I assume, kill them and turn them into shields. which that just makes people cooler and not Shellder.
There was like a Pokedex entry that said like in ancient times they were used as shields.
Which is super
give
cool.
us that ancient Pokemon game. Come on.
Oh,
Junichi
man,
Masuda.
like Pokemon are like super wild. You don't catch them. They're attacking you and like killing you, but you have a like Link's Awakening Pokemon.
James
Link's
Turner,
Pokemon.
whip that art up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
go.
I shouldn't tell the art director for Sword and Shield to do my bidding.
Hey, can you do that?
Come on the show. That is something I would like.
Yeah, that'd
but
be
also
great.
make it that ancient Pokemon game.
Yeah.
We don't want Pokemon Snap again. We want ancient Pokemon Snap.
Ancient
give
Pokemon
us old
battle.
Pokemon. Don't give us new Pokemon Snap. Give us old Pokemon
you
Snap.
You wake up on a beach and you just see this like wasteland of like Shellder shells everywhere, and so you just grab one, and that's like your first thing is this hollowed out Shellder.
It's the trailer for Death Stranding, except instead of a bunch of beached whales, it's a bunch of Shelders.
It's perfect.
The one other thing I oh yeah, that's my Sam Bridges, right? That's his name, really Sam Porter Bridges.
Yeah.
I love Death Stranding. Kojima. All right, I wanted to also pull up one other thing. There are 3 Pokemon that are mentioned as natural predators to Shellder. I want to really quickly go through them. First is Kingler. Now Kingler, I will say, is actually intimidating. You may not think it by looking at a Kingler, which just looks like a crab, but that's because you don't know its size. It's like 4 feet. If I was on a beach,
that's a monster.
A 4-foot crab walked up to me, I would just lay down and let it kill me.
Yeah.
Like do you ever see those old commercials with the orkin bugs, like the roaches?
Yes.
And they'd like, whenever I saw those, I'd be like, don't bother calling orkin, man. Like you're screwed. That thing's going to kill you.
Yeah.
But the other 2 Pokemon that are eating it, not too intimidating. First is Rufflet. How would you describe Rufflet, Zach?
I mean, this is...
You can say cute. This is a cutie.
This is a cute little bird. I mean, it's got, some the talons on it are pretty vicious, but it's
that's what it's
like an owl, right?
It's supposed to be an eaglet, is I believe how they called it. But yeah, it's like a tiny eagle that's just cute as can be, but it does have some claws that it basically pries open Shelders and it eats the insides.
Nice.
The final one that I mentioned is a Bruxish, which is about as embarrassing of a Pokemon to eat you. Not because it doesn't look like it's vicious. It has very sharp fangs, but because it looks like the silliest Pokemon possible.
Yeah, I mean,
it's bright
like the
pink
Pokemon,
and yellow and has eyelashes and lipstick.
The lipstick is really the too much, and the colors would be like whatever. If you took away that lipstick, you've got cool fangs. You took away that weird eyebrow, then you just have this weird.
Can I be a 30-year-old for a second, Zach?
Yeah,
you know what it would be like? If it would be like if you got killed by the lady in Aladdin who says, "Still, I think he's rather tasty." It would be like you die and you go to heaven, and like when people asked you, like, "Hey, how'd you die?" Like you just feel like, "Send me to hell."
Yeah,
I don't want to just tell people about this.
I got this thing. Yeah, the first one makes sense.
Kingler.
Everyone would die against the Kingler. I mean, even if he was a normal size crab, probably I'd still be fine with it because they're monsters. They are giant bugs is what they are. So that's weird. Second one, I could get that. It's a baby, but as we've already said, Shellder, whatever his name is, he's worthless. So he has no
Young
defense.
Sheldon is who we're reviewing today.
Young Sheldon. Yeah, not a great spinoff. The spinoffs go. That third one is really the seal. It's like the seal on how worthless it is.
Getting eaten by a Bruxish is the shooting yourself in the foot kind of injury.
Yeah. Shooting your friend in the butt.
Sure. It is time for the Pokeball decision. This is the part of the show where we review the Pokemon for today, Shellder, by assigning a Pokeball to it. That could be a Pokeball, a Great Ball, an Ultra Ball. And if we really want it, we get one Master Ball. That's throughout each generation. We haven't used either of ours at this point. You also have the option to throw a rocket at or flee. And Zach, let me go first here because I think I have a hot take here too.
Okay. Yeah.
Ultra Ball. Here's why. 2 things. Number one, has that big tongue. I think, you think of like a dog that like, just like a yappy dog that like seems real friendly. And I just think of them like running up, sitting on your lap and licking you.
Mm-hmm.
I had those dogs as a kid. and I think about Shellder, and I think I would just love to get that Shellder out of the shell and just give it a big old cuddle, and it's just licking me. I think that'd be nice.
Oh gosh.
But here's the second thing, and I think more critically.
Okay.
Ultrasun says this in its Pokédex. The sand accumulates inside its shell, eventually becomes a pearl.
That's true.
But the pearl gets in the way, so it spits it out and discards it. This is a money-making machine, Zach.
Okay.
You just you take this thing, you make this your Pokemon, you got a pearl machine.
Yeah. Now that makes a lot more sense than your first one, which was
I want to be licked.
Creepy at best. Creepy at best. That makes more sense. See, I'm actually going to go. Ultra Ball seems insane. I'm going to go Great Ball.
Okay.
But it's only because I want to mad scientist this and see what other Pokemon I can make into a, unstoppable defense. I mean, come on. I don't want the thing to lick me a bunch.
The Liger of Pokemon.
I'm just saying, imagine somebody who has, a Pokemon that doesn't have as great defense. I mean, there's plenty of Pokemon that look like just giant things of bubblegum, right? Sure. So let's take one of them that's got some good attacks. I mean, you remember from last season, we've got Pokemon that, their punch is like a meteor. Okay.
Sure. So put this on a Clefable.
So I'm saying, what if we figure out a way, what if we figure out a way that, I kind of make it think that it's a Slowpoke tail over there, hold it and be like, whoop, sorry, you just bit the arm of this one. Now that meteor punch has diamond armor on it. I mean,
Zach, you're crazy for this one, but
I'm the villain in the next Pokemon game.
So are you, just to get you straight, you're going Great Ball here?
Yeah, Great Ball. I'm giving it because I want to see what happens.
So we both want this Pokemon, but where does it rank in its power? I'm going to pull up the power ranking right now. This is the 21st main episode of this program. So the power ranking has become unwieldy to read through. If you want a refresher on the entire list, you can check out our Instagram, our Facebook, or our Twitter, all at Pokepowpod, where we post the updated power ranking weekly. Right, Zach? We post that weekly?
Absolutely.
We're trying to get better at it. But we're going to do it. You can count on it.
2021's our year.
2021 is the Pokepowpod year.
That's what they've been saying.
Zach,
it's easy for me. I think it's easy for both of us.
For where it's going?
Yeah.
I think at the absolute end.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say 19, but I'm also fine. I mean, or I guess it would be
I think
20.
Beneath Slowpoke is finally where it's going. I think Slowpoke is finally not at the absolute bottom.
Do you think that here's my issue though. I almost think it's a stalemate between them. Is Slowpoke even smart enough to grab the tail? And I guess I agree with you. You know what? I just convinced myself because I thought even though he moves so slow, he's going to get hungry. No, but I don't think so, man, because who wins in that fight? Shellder bites the tail. Shellder bites the tail because that's all it wants.
Into Slowbro. It turns into Slowbro, and then the Slowpoke wins. He's become better, and the Shellder, as far as Professor Oak is concerned, no longer exists.
That's honestly, you're right. It's 21. Honestly, is anything ever going to be worse than this? Is really the question.
So, Zach. There's some bad Pokemon out there.
All right. I believe you. You're the expert.
Well, wonderful. What a way to launch our new season by saying this one is the absolute worst Pokemon we've talked about yet. Anything you want to say in closing, Zach?
You know what, listeners, viewers, if you're a Shellder of a person, maybe a parasite, just stop. Don't do that anymore. It's not good. Exist on your own. Learn how to use your skills that have been built into you, your diamond shell. Use that to your advantage. Don't let the Slowpokes of your life use that.
Don't show your surprisingly tender side.
Don't ever show your tenderness. It will be crushed. I know that. I have so many friends, and I never show my tender side because you know what'll happen? They'll crush me. I mean, that's what I learned in middle school, in high school, in college, and as a grown man. And that's my advice to everyone. Never.
And for me, if you do want to see someone's tender side, just yank that tongue, baby. You yank that tongue, they're surprisingly tender. Settle come right out.
No.
What a show.
Good.
As always, the Pokemon Power Podcast would like to thank bulbapedia.bulbagarden.net, Cerebi.org, and Dr. Lava YT. If you'd like to learn more about Pokemon, those would be great resources for you. If you'd like to ask us a question about next week's Pokemon, submit a game, or just keep up with the podcast, you can find us on most social media platforms at Pokepowpod. Zach, do you want to take us out? Do you remember how we closed the show?
You know, I do. It's season 2, guys. And something that hasn't changed with all the things that have changed in the world is that if you were a Pokemon, we'd choose you.
Have a great week.
Bye.